Alright guys, and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about which DPS specs are going to be the best in Wrath of the Lich King, which ones are going to be the big pumpers of the expansion. So the answer to this question is never simple, and let's be honest, it always turns out to be a surprise when the expansion does finally rock up and people are doing like nutty numbers in some random spec we didn't even know did good DPS. But the first question we ask obviously is, what tier of content are we clearing? Because the level of DPS on the on something like Warcraft logs, it's going to change significantly over the course of the expansion. Certain DPS are going to start off amazing, but then start to level off as time goes on. Some DPS are going to begin basically hitting like a noodle, but then by the end of the expansion, they will be trumping everyone on the meters. Now what I have here is some DPS rankings from one of the most popular Wrath of the Lich King private servers called Warmane. Now this was put together by somebody called Sayansitius or Sayansifis. It's a ridiculously complicated name to pronounce, but nonetheless I'll put it in the description of this video and the original Reddit post as well. And this is basically based on his personal experiences of playing a lot of Wrath of the Lich King private servers, and by looking at it, it definitely looks fairly accurate in my humble opinion. It's probably not 100% accurate. We shouldn't be taking this as the complete word of God, but I think it's a good start. Obviously, these DPS specs in the hands of really exceptional players will scale up a little bit in the rankings from time to time, depending on what group you're in. But if we took a group of players all at the top of their form, very equal skill, equal connection, same add-ons, same everything, then yeah, what we're looking at here is fairly accurate. But then we also have to consider that different fights will make different DPS excel on the meters as well. For instance, I know that Holy always scales up a little bit better on cleave fights, for instance. So firstly, we have Naxxramas, the first raid that you're going to be stepping into in Wrath of the Lich King, along with Eye of Eternity and Obsidian Sanctum. So we have at the top the Assassination Rogue, both Death Knight DPS specs, and the Warlock specs. Fairly accurate from my experience of playing private servers. The Assassination Rogue does nutty damage, the Death Knights are great, and the Warlocks are unreal as well, both Affliction and Demonology. It's because of the execute window when it comes to Affliction. Now I have seen Hunters, Balanced Druids, and Shadow Priests, compete with Warlocks and Death Knights. But everything below here, Retribution Paladin. Paladin, it needs crit. Arms Warrior, it needs armor penetration. Fire Mage, it needs crit. And you may be thinking, well, we'll be bringing like loads of great crit gear from TBC. Won't that mean that these specs will, be better? But no. Unfortunately, the item levels step up from Sunwell to basically like basic gear that you can get from Heroic Nexus. It is quite a step up in primary stats. So you won't be able to like deck yourself out in Sunwell gear, although some pieces are really good. For instance, the 2-set bonus for a Rogue is actually quite good because it gives you an extra 5% haste on Slice and Dice, something like that anyway. So another reason why Assassination Rogue is really good. Now, there are some inaccuracies to this though, in my opinion. I think Feral, if you know how you're playing a Feral, you know how to itemize your Feral properly, he will do much more DPS. I've seen Ferals do nutty DPS in Naxxramas. And then Blood Death Knight, there is actually a good Blood Death Knight DPS spec that you can take advantage of early Wrath, and it won't be at the bottom of the meters, trust me. It's fairly decent. And another thing I will say, for instance, the Retribution Paladin on cleave fights like Noth in Naxxramas will definitely top the meters, because like literally all of their abilities is a cleave ability. Now we have Ulduar, so things shift a little bit here. This is when finally combat rogues will basically get good enough gear to start doing ridiculously good DPS. Warlocks kind of stay where they are, Death Knights kind of stay where they are, and then we get the Fury Warrior beginning to crawl up as he's getting like armor penetration and crit, and just scaling up with stats basically. We also have the Fire Mage crawling up here, taking over the Arcane Mage, which will do eventually. Again, that has a lot to do with crit chance, ignite procs, everything like that. Now we have the Trial of a Crusader, so now Death Knights have crawled up to be the top dog spot. Same with Hunters and Fire Mages, and also Retribution Paladin and Warrior again crawling up, but now Warlocks unfortunately are crawling down. Again, from my experience, that is fairly accurate. I'm not saying like Warlocks can never top the meters anymore, but it does kind of feel like their DPS can kind of begin to drop off later on in Wrath of the Lich King. And lastly, we have Icecrown Citadel, and you know, this ranking here of Fury, Fire, Combat, Feral, and then Ret and Death Knights, yeah, that's fairly accurate. These are going to be, by the end of Wrath of the Lich King, the top dog DPS. It's definitely going to be Fury, Fire, Combat, Feral, and Retribution Paladin and Death Knights, particularly when the Death Knights, the Ret Paladins, and the Fury Warrior get Shadowmourne. And I've always felt that at this point, fair enough, you have your top dog specs that I've just described, but like everyone below that is fairly on like a fairly even playing field. Okay, because around about this time, the DPS specs are, you know, fairly balanced, and everyone's just kind of fighting on the meters. Sometimes you see a Shadow Priest on the top of the meter, sometimes you see a Hunter, sometimes you see an Enhancement Shaman, sometimes you see a Warlock. You know, it is a bit of a mix and match. What really separates, you know, DPS at this point is players. But nonetheless, well, I think the logs for all these different specs will be, like, fairly similar. But who knows, like, you know, in the future, when we finally get, like, a big set of data from Warcraft logs, you know, when Wrath of the Lich King, you know, Classic Wrath is finally out, who knows which DPS, you know, will come out on top of others. But I think, like, you know, you'll have your top dog DPS, but then you'll have all the other DPS on a fairly even playing field, and it will look like more like retail World of Warcraft logs, you know, basically. And that's pretty much going to be the end of the video there, guys. By the way, this year I just really can't be bothered with like family drama and spending Christmas with a bunch of Scrooges, so what I've decided to do is actually spend Christmas alone. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of a live stream for, you know, everyone else who's also spending Christmas alone. There's going to be probably copious amounts of alcohol, bit of a cooking stream, and we'll have a few guests on, you know, as the day progresses. Who knows what will happen? It's probably going to be a very long, you know, like 12-hour stream, so be sure to check out my Twitch. That's always in the description of all my videos. But anyway, my name is MetaGoblin. To my next video. Ciao.